Good evening and a very warm welcome to you, our fabulous international family of silent film friends, both old and new. I'm Michelle Facey, beaming to you live from London, and this is episode 13 of KBTV, streaming right here on our Kennington Bioscope YouTube channel, bringing you another silent film show entirely free for you to view, programmed, produced and presented by our online team to entertain you wherever you are, hopefully bringing you some comfort and joy in the health and safety of your own domestic surroundings. Still denied as we are the luxury of our traditional live events and venue, which for us would, under normal circumstances, be taking place at the Cinema Museum in Lambeth, South London, which is the wonderfully atmospheric place you see in the VT preamble for this show, and as the lights go down, up and down in between each segment. How we miss it, as we're sure you miss your own favourite venue in which to see silent film and hear innovative, enjoyable and moving accompaniments by your favourite players, be it at the Castro in San Francisco, Momi in New York, the Fox Theatre in Toronto, the Curzon in Clevedon, the Hippodrome in Bowness, the Piazzas of Bologna, Pordenone's Teatro Verdi, or indeed the EYE and the BFI. And it is these last two venues and National Archive entities who are the founders of tonight's feast, providing the filmic fare which sees our cinematic table groaning with tasty goodies. As for this, our final show of the year, and what a year, we are delighted to be presenting a right Christmas cracker with 12, yes, 12 films showing by kind and generous courtesy of the archives of the Netherlands EYE and John Desmet collections and our own National Archive, the BFI. And taking their places at our table of 12 films, we may not have 12 drummers drumming, but, and I can barely contain my excitement for this, we do have 12 accompanists accompanying. Yes, indeed, for in a staggering logistical feat, by dint of the magic of digital wizardry, our sleigh ride has seen us visiting with famed silent film players from near and far, from both South and North America, the Netherlands and the UK, and by whose extremely kind cooperation and the spirit of goodwill, 10 of these expert players have specially recorded new music for their film for your enjoyment, and they are from the USA, Donald Sosin, Philip Carli and Ben Model, from Mexico, José María Serralde Ruiz, from the Netherlands, Daan van den Hurk, and from the UK, Stephen Horne, Colin Sell, John Sweeney, Lillian Henley and Meg Morley, with another two playing for you live from London as they simultaneously handle the live stream to YouTube and my live stream to you, plus all the files of the films and music to play out to you. We have Cyrus Gabrysch and Costas Fotopoulos. It's a lot to handle, so fingers crossed that everything runs smoothly. And if we do encounter any hitches along the way, please stay tuned and we will be back with you as soon as humanly possible. Don't forget, you can chat along with others in the live chat box, even during the films, and some fabulous insights and fun are to be had there. I hope you have a drink to hand, and I will certainly be raising a glass with you at journey's end. I do have to pay tribute, though, straight off the bat to the Bioscope elves who have been working like Billio behind the scenes to bring you tonight's show, and they are Todd Higginson and John Sweeney. It was Todd and John who combed the online archive material to assemble such a lovely selection box, contacting the archives to ensure our content, and Todd, who has added, translated into titles where needed, and done much more to the films to prepare them for transmission than I can even comprehend, and whose super idea it was to put out the call to all these different musicians. And of course, it's thanks to John that contact was made with everyone in order to collect these sweet musical treats. And Todd again, who has performed further digital trickery to bring the recordings to optimum level. So our first batch of films all hail from the EYE Filmmuseum and John Desmet collection, starting off with a look at Holland in the winter of 1917, accompanied by Daan van den Hurk, director of the Netherlands Silent Film Festival, who has played with us in the past, live at the Cinema Museum, plus at Bristol Slapstick Festival, Pordenone and many more places besides, and who also produced some entertaining live streams of comedy to keep our spirits up during the first lockdown period. Dan says that parts of his score are improvised for this film, but that he also incorporated many traditional Dutch tunes with appropriate titles. Following that trip to the wintry Netherlands, we'll be embarking on an animated expedition to the North Pole, accompanied by our own founder and the one who got the ball rolling on our KBTV broadcast, Mr. Cyrus Gabrysch, who recently accompanied the BFI London Film Festival archive silent film restoration of The Cheaters, made by the Australian McDonough sisters. There's a reference in this cute animation that may be lost to the modern viewer, or just to people like myself who aren't completely familiar with the whole history of attempts at polar exploration. But Todd dug up this nugget regarding the matter of the name of the airship in the film. He says, The name gumdrop is one of a couple of gags at the expense of the Arctic expedition of Dr. Frederick Cook, who claimed controversially to have reached the North Pole in 1908. His financial backer was quoted in the press on his return as saying that the expedition's equipment included 2 barrels of gumdrops, presumably biscuit barrel sized, not the water barrel one imagines. Todd says, as the quote goes, an Eskimo will travel 30 miles to get a gumdrop, for his is the sweetest in the world. Popular ridicule of the expedition was centered around gumdrops in editorial cartoons and articles, despite Cook's denial that they took any of the confection at all. Some live action commences after our return from the frozen north, with French comedic actor André Dede starring in his successful character role for the Natale studios in Turin as Cretinetti, with what else but Il Natale di Cretinetti, Cretinetti's Christmas, from 1909. Dede had starred in several Georges Méliès films in his native France at the turn of the century and took on board lessons from the master, incorporating trick shots into his films. He met his future wife, Valentina Frascaroli, once he'd made his move to Italy, and she starred in many of his films, as she does in this one, seeing him off from home on his way to create Merry Christmas Chaos. The pair would undertake a theatrical tour of Europe in 1913, in which they also travelled on to perform in Latin America. And that provides a most appropriate link to our next guest accompanist, as this special recording for Cretinetti comes to us from Mexico City by courtesy of pianist and scholar José María Serralde Ruiz, who has done incredible work recording scores for and promoting the silent films of his native land, Mexico. And hot on his heels, we have our very own Colin Sell, star of stage and airwaves, as the regular in-house pianist for Radio 4's popular programme, I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue. Of course, we've all become regulars in our own houses this year, but before all of this took place, Colin had become a welcome contributor to our Bioscope shows, and he's been a trooper for our online shows too. His film is a heartwarming Vitagraph short from 1912 entitled Ida's Christmas. So touching a seasonal film is this, that it continued as a popular festive picture 10 years after production, listed as a suitable selection for children in the visual education publications Films Suggested for Christmas Use column, recommended as a good picture to arouse in children the spirit of giving as well as receiving during the Christmas holidays. And even another 5 years after that, in 1926, the Film Daily paper puts Ida on their Christmas picture list. So we're glad to be continuing in that tradition by showing this film from the UNESCO Memory of the World Register Jean Desmet collection. And of course, not only do we get to see the great John Bunny here, although somewhat disguised, but little Dolores Costello, who along with her actress sister Helene were the daughters of that Vitagraph sensation, the picture idol himself, Maurice Costello. In Terry Schulman's new book on the Costellos, Film's First Family, Dolores tells us in a 1927 interview about her start in pictures. I shall never forget my first appearance in front of a camera. I recall very distinctly that I was dressed in rags. Suddenly, very tall men appeared and took my father away. I became white with fright and ran off the stage, crying hysterically. But there's no hysteria here, just a quiet, thoughtful performance from the young actress, who would, of course, continue in pictures, marrying the great profile himself, John Barrymore, they in turn being the grandparents of Drew Barrymore, who herself, like her grandmother, grew from child star to adult star and mother to 2 little girls, having now relocated from Hollywood for the purposes of her new daily TV show produced at the old CBS studios in New York, which biographical segues me along perfectly to our last film in this section, a very short of a snowy New York scene, which is accompanied by a regular New York who has been a welcome and friendly presence throughout lockdown on our silent streaming screens, with his fantastic silent comedy watch party coming live from New York every week since March 22nd of this year. Along with his friend and silent comedy film historian Steve Masser, they have both given us so much in terms of silent film scholarship and discoveries, and also something to look forward to on a Sunday. And we look forward to his score for this Snowstorm. Now, I neglected to let you in on a little secret, as not only do we have a fantastic array of accompanists, what more could there be, I hear you say? Well, we have guests, special guests, 3 of them. They've all recorded introductions from their own homes, so don't worry, we're not about to burst any social distancing bubbles. But our first guest here with good cheer to tell us about Holland in Is none other than that dame of Dutch film, but silent film curator of the EYE Filmmuseum, Elif Rongen-Kaynakçi, whom I asked to say hello to us, as the EYE has provided us with so many films and so much assistance since we started broadcasting here back in April. So say hello to a very festive Elif.
Hello everyone, my name is Elif Rongen-Kaynakçi. I am the curator of silent film at EYE Filmmuseum. I want to thank the Kennington Bioscope team for inviting me today, but also for having used our films basically from the start of the lockdowns, and by using them, they allowed the audiences around the world basically to enjoy films from our collection by adding great music and of course English subtitles. So today, on today's show, there's a very typical Dutch film that I want to introduce briefly. The film is called Holland on Ice. So it is showing a specifically cold winter, 1917, so 103 years ago, when everything froze in the Netherlands. And the film is shot on several places actually. It starts with The Hague, where it is the political capital of the Netherlands, where there's the parliament, and we're seeing there that the pond next to the parliament has frozen. After that, we see some fishermen villages where people are in folkloric dress and skating and ice sailing and doing all kinds of fun things that we actually kind of recognize, we could say, from the old Dutch masters' paintings. So they look kind of familiar with all this historical and picturesque look. Then we move on to something else, the phenomenon called Elfstedentocht. What we're seeing in this film is in 1917, the Elfstedentocht was held for the 3rd time ever. This is basically an endurance challenge where the participants are asked to skate for almost 200 kilometers from one town to another in the north of the Netherlands, in Friesland. And this can only be held actually when the temperatures are so low that all the canals connecting these towns are naturally frozen. And this doesn't happen very often, I have to say. It started in 1909, and the last one was in 1997. And that was the 15th, so it's only been held 15 times so far. In this footage, we see different towns. We stop in different towns, and they're all mentioned, like Snake and Franeker and so on. And we also see the winner, who was called the Koning, Koen de Koning, who won this particular edition, and his name actually literally translates as the king. So the intertitle reads something like the king visited the town, but actually it is Koen de Koning who is the winner that we're seeing. Maybe it's interesting to know that back then in 1917, Koen de Koning finished in just less than 10 hours. In the last edition of the Elfstedentocht, the score was just below 7 hours actually. And as I said, since 1997, this didn't happen anymore because the temperatures didn't go down that much, probably climate change. And this year, for the coming winter, even if that would happen, it's already announced and decided that the Elfstedentocht will not happen due to the COVID measures. So that's what I want to say about the film. Accompanying the film, we also have a special treat. We have Daan van Hurk from the Netherlands. He always performs magic with his scores, so I hope you will enjoy it. Before I go, I just want to give you, on behalf of the EYE Filmmuseum, also our best wishes for a better, healthier, sparkly 2021. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Thank you so much to Elif and all the accompanists for that eye-catching selection. No groaning at the back there. I've got to prepare you for Christmas cracker joke season. Our next three films in this section come from the BFI National Archive. We commence with the earliest film version based on A Christmas Carol, but more about that in a minute. The accompanist will be Meg Morley, joining us online for the first time, and very welcome it is to hear her again. Meg hails from Australia and has lived here in London for several years now, and we've had the pleasure of her accompaniment at the Cinema Museum many times, and she's played for the archive restoration of Love, Life and Laughter in the BFI LFF, recorded scores for DVD releases and much more besides, as she records with her own jazz band, the Meg Morley Trio. So welcome to the show, Meg. The next film is very brief but impactful. Snowballs from 1901 is one of the rare fiction titles in the BFI's Mitchell and Kenyon collection. And here we see schoolboy scamps besiege passers-by with handfuls of the cold white stuff. The BFI player info tells us that this film has been labelled as from Glasgow, but we have no clues as to who commissioned it, who the players were, or where the filming might have taken place. Mitchell and Kenyon had made some fiction films on a stage attached to their photographic shop in Blackburn, and had an arrangement to borrow costumes from E.H. Page, proprietor of the town's Lyceum Theatre. It's likely that the stage scenery came from the same source. At this early date, it wasn't possible to film in the low lighting conditions of a theatre, so this would have had to be shot outdoors. This film will be accompanied by the lovely Lillian Henley, well known in this parish, who has been accompanying films from the Bioscope right from its inception and has recorded scores for the BFI, plus is the musical director for the 1927 theatre group. Hello to Lillian. Our third film in this section is another fleeting treat. It's Christmas Eve and the children wait expectantly. The BFI player's blurb tells us that the superimposition revealing that Santa is on his way is the first example of a film showing what is happening in two places at once. The circular projection betrays the fact that director George Albert Smith was once a magic lantern artist. The mother and infants in this film are played by Smith's wife, Laura Bailey, and their two children, Harold and Dorothy. Early film companies were small outfits, and Smith's was very much a family concern. Smith first became well known on the stage with a hypnotism act before opening a pleasure garden in Hove, where he put on magic lantern shows. In 1896, he enthusiastically embraced the new medium of cinema and became one of Britain's first filmmakers. Playing for this film, we have the pleasure of welcoming Stephen Horne to the show. As many of you will know, Stephen is an internationally known and acclaimed multi-instrumentalist silent film accompanist, also playing at many festivals around the world and commissioned to write scores for live events and DVD releases. He is also a friend to the Bioscope, and we have enjoyed many a magical evening with him at the Cinema Museum. All of these BFI films you're about to see are treated to the talents of Meg, Lillian and Stephen. And as an extra special treat, hot from the camera, sent over to us just a few hours ago, and a huge thank you for doing this for us. To introduce us to the 1901 Scrooge, we have none other than one of our most beloved elder statesmen of silent film, Mr. David Robinson. A big, warm Bioscope welcome to David, who should appear to you any moment now.
Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol has remained a bestseller for 177 years. Now here's one of the earliest editions. It's not a first edition, but it was very shortly after the first edition because they had to reprint it again and again. And that's what it looked like when it came out in 1843. Well, since then, it's never been out of print. And quite apart from that, it's probably the world's most often filmed book, with at least 20 screen versions and a star-studded cavalcade of actors who played the role of Ebenezer Scrooge, from Seymour Hicks and Lionel Barrymore to Albert Finney and George C. Scott. Remarkably, too, the book, exactly as written, provides a perfect screenplay. Writers never need to change a word of the dialogue. Dickens was a jolly good screenwriter. But tonight, we're not going to have any dialogue because we're going to go back 120 years to the very first of all the films of A Christmas Carol. It was produced in 1901 by Robert William Paul, Britain's greatest film pioneer. The director was Walter Booth, whose career as a professional magician made him rather smart at special effects, as you're going to see. The film was not, in fact, taken directly from Dickens, but from the actor-director J.C. Buckstone's stage adaptation, which he called Scrooge or Marley's Ghost. The play and the film after it dispensed with the spirits of Christmas past, present, and future, and used Marley's ghost, rather weirdly draped in a sheet to prove that he was a ghost, to disclose to Scrooge the errors of his miserly ways and his chance for redemption. Paul described the film as being in 12 tableaus, dissolving and otherwise, changing from one to another for a consecutive series with special scenery and special effects. And he told his exhibitors, each scene has been arranged and animatographed with the greatest care and skill and is carried out on the lines of the play. And Robert Paul presented everyone who bought the film with a copy of the original book, in which, as he said, the passages descriptive of the various scenes of the pictures are marked for reading. This film, he said, accompanied or preceded by the appropriate readings from the book, forms a Christmas entertainment of the brightest, most effective and pleasing nature that could be offered, and will never fail to draw large audiences. This great film can safely be called the high water mark of animated photography. Robert Paul was very pleased with himself, I think. Sad to say, the only surviving print of this film in the BFI National Archive lacks almost half of the original footage. Fortunately, however, a precise synopsis of the film was printed in The Era, the great Victorian show business magazine. And from this, Todd Higginson has created titles to describe very precisely the missing pieces of action. Of course, the audience of the time would not really have needed much commentary. For sure, most of them would know and love the book. And I think it's remarkable to remember that in 1901, A Christmas Carol was a comparatively recent publication from only 58 years before, rather like a book of the 1960s is for us today. There would still be people who saw this film who remembered the first appearance of A Christmas Carol. Well, I hope that you can put yourself in their places and enjoy it as they did, even with all the wounds that time has left upon the film. So here we have it, Scrooge or Marley's Ghost.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you to David, Lillian, Meg, and Stephen. For our next section, we have two more delights from the BFI Christmas box, followed by a big old serving of Bronco Billy's Christmas dinner. The little match girl will be accompanied by Donald Sosin, joined on vocals by Joanna Seaton. This talented pair play at major film festivals around the world, including the USA, Moscow, Thailand, and South Korea, and contributed to the online Giornate this year, as did several of tonight's accompanists, and we are delighted they have joined us. Costas Fotopoulos has now taken over the live stream from Cyrus, and he will perform live for the Mistletoe Bough in a few moments. Costas is well known to us here as a musical maestro, composer and director of music for film and theatre, and has been playing with us regularly for several years now, which is always a pleasure. Carli teaches at the Eastman School of Music and is another scholar of silent film, researching and writing about silent film, enjoying a long relationship with silence, having started accompanying them live from the age of 13, and is yet another esteemed and regular player at Pordenone and other film festivals. And he will be playing for Bronco Billy's Christmas dinner. In a revealing interview for Photography in April 1913 entitled Sans Grease Paint and Wig, SNA's G.M. Anderson, he of the A in SNA, explains to interviewer Mabel Condon that the Bronco Billy series started by accident. The first one, he said, was Bronco Billy's Christmas dinner more than a year ago, and the second one didn't suggest itself for about 2 months. The people liked them, so they've been coming ever since. I never write out my scenarios, he announced. I just get an idea, think it out, and produce the scenes around it, just whenever they occur to me. There are 3 things I deem essential to the success of the players as players. They are personality, mentality, emotion, being the most effective emotion displayed. Then he says something most prophetic. There is nobody in comedy, however, who can come up to Costello in drama. I see a great opening for a comedian in pictures. This was 1913, and of course it was in the following year that our own Charlie Chaplin would commence in taking up that open position in spectacular fashion. Jim Anderson had a mere hint, really, of that level of fame when he found himself, as he tells Mabel, Bronco Billied when one is walking down San Francisco's very nicest promenade with a friend, and some very normal boys tag in one's wake with the insistent request, "Let's see you pull your gun, Bronco Billy." Anyway, this first outing for BB, Bronco Billy, is a fun and festive one for our Christmas show. And our third and final guest will tell you all about these first 2 films from the BFI, for we have with us none other than the BFI's own silent film curator herself, Bryony Dixon, a keen watcher and supporter of our shows, for which we thank her, as well as showing gratitude for assisting us in sharing films with you from our National Archive. And don't forget, there are so many wonderful films available free to watch on the BFI player. Now, here's Bryony to tell us more.
Hello and Merry Christmas, everybody, and I'm very pleased to be with you and to introduce the next 2 films. These are both British films held at the BFI National Archive, and they are about 2 traditions very strong in Christmas filmmaking. One is the extra pathos and poignancy that comes with Christmas time, and the other is about the telling of ghost stories at Christmas. So the first film we have is from 1914, and it's made by Percy Nash, and it's the story of the Little Match Girl, popularised by Hans Christian Andersen, first written in 1845. And it's a well-known tale about a girl with an abusive father who makes her sell matches, and she tries. There she's in the snow on Christmas Eve and nobody will buy her matches. They keep passing her by, and eventually she curls up in the snow and burns the last of the matches to keep herself warm, if only for an instant. It's a sad tale, but beautifully told in this film with some lovely colour tinting to represent the visions that are conjured up in the light of the burning match. The second of our films is The Mistletoe Bough, made in 1904 by another Percy Stowe for the Clarendon Company. And this is a very famous story, often told as a sort of recitation or sung as a song or maybe a ballad during Christmas parties. Goes back to the early 19th century in Italy, we think. And it's the story of a bride at her wedding party who is playing hide and seek, and she goes and hides in a trunk, which you should never do, and we see the awful consequences. But it's a story often told in film and literature. It was referenced by Henry James and Thomas Hardy, and in film most famously by Alfred Hitchcock in 1948 in Rope. The baddies are telling the story of the mistletoe bough while there's a body in a trunk right in front of them. So it's a cracking tale. I hope you enjoy it. Merry Christmas, and I hope very much to see you all soon.
Our sincere thanks to Bryony Dixon for her intro and the kind cooperation of the BFI, and to Elif and the EYE and John Desmet collections. And we have one more festive film to come before the end of the show, which is another one from EYE and a very early film from 1898, accompanied by the one and only Mr. John Sweeney, who brought all of these marvellous musicians together for this festive episode. He is yet to play, so don't go anywhere yet. Thank you doesn't really adequately cover how much we appreciate the contributions of all the musicians in tonight's Christmas special. Their one-off recordings and live playing making it so much more festive and communal at this time when we've all been apart for so long than we could even imagine. You're all shining stars on our Christmas tree. Philip Carli, Donald Sosin and Joanna Seaton, Daan van den Hurk, Ben Model, José María Serralde Ruiz, Lillian Henley, Colin Sell, Costas Fotopoulos, Meg Morley, Cyrus Gabrysch, Stephen Horne and John Sweeney. Please check out Okay. Hi, sorry, little technical snafu. I did warn you that might happen. So thank you for holding on. If you did, thank you. So as I was saying, we've put as many links for the musicians as we could manage into the info box on this page. And for ourselves, we do have a Kennington Bioscope coffee donation page, the link for which you'll also find below. If you've enjoyed the show and kindly do leave us a donation, it's intended for a particular musician, then let us know with your comment and we'll see it goes to them. But any other donations go towards our future programming when we're finally back in venue. Thank you, of course, to the Cinema Museum, who have conducted a successful crowdfunder campaign, and thank you for all who contributed to that. But I know that the museum could always do with any support you can show them, so please check their website for updates and for ways in which you can help them. Of course, for those catching up on this show later on, as this live stream will stay up on YouTube as with all our previous episodes, with these 12 films, you could be strict and ration yourselves to one a day for the 12 days of Christmas. But I hope for all of those watching live that you've enjoyed the glorious seasonal splurge we've delivered to your digital door? Or did we drop down through the chimney? It's been a sensational sleigh ride for me tonight, and an honour to be presiding over such a splendid succession of films and to enjoy introducing not only our very special guests, Elif Rongen-Kaynakçi, Bryony Dixon and David Robinson, but such a superb company of players. I have so many people to thank that I'll just gallop through them as fast as I can, like Dancer and Prancer. Our thanks, love and best wishes, as always, to the Cinema Museum, to dear Ronald Grant and Martin Humphreys, Catherine Ford and all the volunteers, but particularly David Lavelli and Phil Clark, to all the Bioscope Committee, Bob Gagan, Tony Fletcher, Glenn Mitchell, David Wyatt, Dave Locke, Amran Vance, Cyrus Gabrysch, and to other supporters, Christopher Bird and Malcolm Billingsley, and to our friend and patron, Kevin Brownlow. To Todd Higginson and John Sweeney, we owe so much for making the show happen. Thank you both immeasurably. Thank you to Cyrus and Costas for handling tonight's live stream. Thanks to all of you at home for watching, chatboxing, tweeting, Instagramming, blogging, and everything else you do to support the show and all of us who produce it. It's been a tough year, but this experience of broadcasting live KBTV to you all, wherever you are in the world, has been an unforgettable one, bringing us a sense of community and togetherness at a time when we've had to keep apart, and introducing us to new viewers and making us new friends, and reminding us of what is essential to us for the nourishment of our minds and spirits. This is a very special and festive feeling, and the show tonight has been imbued with this, and much in keeping, I feel, and I hope you do too, with the spirit of Christmas. So please, without further ado, do charge your glasses, as I do mine, and raise a glass to one another, near or far. Cheers to you all, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you back here for more KBTV in 2021. And please, in the meantime, stay safe and healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Merry Christmas!
love my little baby. Do I love her? Don't mean maybe. Honey, baby, deed I do.
Do you love your baby?
Sure, I love my baby. Precious baby, deed I do.